live here at Out and Net with Dan Hardy, UK MMA legend. First off, Dan, congratulations for PFL Europe, but we'll touch on that in a second. We're here for Ngannou and Joshua. Just first off, what's your kind of initial reaction to this fight?
I mean, shock, honestly. The Ngannou Fury fight kind of came out of nowhere. I was surprised that happened, but then to have this fight almost off the back of it, for Ngannou to get a second opportunity against another top flight heavyweight, I was very, very surprised. And I feel like this is genuinely a more competitive fight than the last one as well.
I think a lot of people obviously wrote off Ngannou before that Fury fight, and the attitude has changed so quickly from before being a huge gimmick fight. This was the words actually of Eddie and AJ, to now this is kind of a serious fight. Do you think this is a legacy fight now for Joshua?
I mean, certainly it's a very important one because it's a bit of a tipping point. It could go one or two ways. Like, it could be very, very embarrassing if he loses to Ngannou. Of course, he's not supposed to. His promoters and his team are looking at Ngannou and going, we've seen him now. There's no surprise factor on the table anymore, so we know what we're dealing with. We know what Fury should have done, and we're going to go and do that. Then they put a good performance on against Ngannou, and that really is a statement against Fury. That's the plan. I can see it. It's perfect. But the difference is one person on that day is going to wake up and realize they've got to fight Francis Ngannou. And they're going to remember what happened in the Fury fight. They're going to realize when they lock up with Ngannou how strong and how powerful he is, even compared to other heavyweight boxers. You know what I mean? Like, I would say that one of the things that really shocked Tyson was how strong Ngannou was in the clinch. Because I feel like, for Fury, a big part of his game plan was surely to make him tired, right? Exhaust him. He wasn't able to do it. He was just too physically strong and composed. And I think we're going to see the same thing here. I think AJ is going to have to work really hard to kind of entice Ngannou out of his shell with his lead hand, and we'll see if that works.
Do you think the 10 rounds suits AJ or Francis?
That's a good question. I mean, the problem with AJ is he can be quite a slow starter, right? So if he has a couple of rounds which are kind of lackluster because he's not exactly sure what he's dealing with, so he's giving Ngannou the respect, he could potentially lose a couple of rounds and put more pressure on himself and then realize at the 8th round he's only got a couple left. For Ngannou, there was questions going into the Fury fight whether he would have gas for 10 rounds. But now he knows he has. So I think we're going to see a better pace from Ngannou, but I also think that might shut AJ down a little bit. It might make him a bit more cautious, which is probably going to allow Ngannou to get out on the scorecards a bit earlier.
Yeah, I think obviously Ngannou's first fight was against Fury, and to have a magnitude fight like obviously we know his dream of boxing came before the UFC. It's pretty well documented. That was his dream when he was leaving the desert. It was boxing, and I don't think he could have quite ever envisioned that his first two fights would have been against arguably the two best heavyweights of our era.
It's a movie script, isn't it? It really is. For what he was able to achieve in mixed martial arts, the risk that he took fighting out of his contract and rolling the dice and then hoping that it lands on the right numbers, and obviously it did. And then even if it was just a Fury fight and then he steps back into the PFL and he goes back for MMA titles and stuff, brilliant. He did it, well done. But here he is fighting Anthony Joshua, right? He's in another huge marquee fight that doesn't in any way affect his MMA record. He's going to continue to grow his brand in the boxing world. If he has a good performance, even if it's a loss, I still feel like he's going to get other opportunities. He's an interesting person to drop into the heavyweight boxing because he's like he's a cat among the pigeons, isn't he? He's stirred everything up. And now, almost in this fight, he's a commodity that's worth beating to open up opportunities for the future. I don't think you can overlook him like that.
No. I think he's done this time and time over again over the last few years, proving people wrong, proving the UFC. I mean, I was speaking to Ben about this before. I feel like he's one of the very few people that have managed to challenge the UFC and come out of it even bigger. I mean, Dana White has done some amazing things for the sport, but I think he's taken a big L publicly with how he's handled the whole Francis situation. My question to you is, if he goes and beats Joshua, what do you think's next for him?
Man, you've got to be talking about keeping him in boxing and keep moving him towards a heavyweight title. I would be thinking about, well, we need to see the Fury fight again, especially depending on how Fury Usyk goes. Like, I could put Ngannou in against any of those guys. If he has a good performance against AJ, even if he has the same performance that he had against Fury and comes out on the losing end, there's still a handful of boxing matches that I would like to see. And, you give him 3 fights and 3 wins, and he's back in this picture again. I think we're going to see him fighting for a heavyweight boxing title at some point, especially if he has a good night against AJ.
Hope we all see that, to be honest. We'll just move on to PFL Europe quickly. You guys had a tremendous success with PFL Europe last season. What can you expect? Well, what can we expect for the 2024 season?
Well, there's going to be some announcements this week. We're going to be announcing some dates for the European events. My calendar is 27, 28 events on it this year across PFL and Bellator, and there's loads and loads of stuff going on, and that's not including these kind of events that are coming up. It's going to be a busy year. We're gonna have a good presence in Europe again. We're going to be doing some bigger arenas. We're going to be doing some bigger fights. The marquee fights on the card are still going to be there like they were last year. But of course, the PFL roster will be sitting on the card. We've got 4 weight classes this year, 4 titles on the line. I'm bringing in a new weight class this year in place of one of the other ones, and you'll know some of the guys in these weight classes, and you'll be excited to see them fight. Some familiar faces from last year, some new faces coming in this year, some veterans, some scary individuals. I'm excited for the roster this year. I'm looking forward to getting underway.
You are renownedly known to have one of the most intellectual minds when it comes to MMA. You're so smart. Your breakdowns are phenomenal. Like, your attention to detail and your knowledge on the sport is phenomenal. What is it like for you to be able to be given this opportunity for PFL and not only grow the PFL but also grow MMA?
It's a position, honestly, I never thought I would be in. I mean, to be honest, it's the story of my life, really. I never thought I would be a professional athlete, and then on the end of that, it led into me being a professional commentator. And I'm living on borrowed time here every day. Even standing there talking to you, I'm not exactly sure what I'm doing here. I'm in a position now where I can find fighters that have got promise and they've got determination, they've got everything else other than the opportunity, and I've been that guy, and I didn't have the person to go, well, there's your opportunity, and I can be that person now. And that for me is the best thing. One of my favourite things all the way through last year was in Dublin, Brett John's on the card. He was desperate to get out. No one was able to match him. I was able to get him on the card. I was able to get him on the card, and just the elation afterwards of, first of all, being able to have a run out, and second of all, the fact that someone had believed in him enough to give him the opportunity. And I remember being in that position myself, and the fact that I can create those opportunities is like nothing else in mixed martial arts. It's fantastic. There are so many good fighters around and not enough opportunities. If I can do something to create some opportunities for these guys, then I'm doing everybody some favours, in my opinion.
I love that. Last question I've got for you. One of the talents that I've got my eye on in PFL Europe specifically is Chanel Dyer.
Oh, yeah.
Chanel Dyer, she's going to be in the same division as Dakota. She's obviously, the aim is to take Dakota's PFL Europe belt. What do you think of Chanel Dyer, and what do you think she can achieve, not only this season, but in her MMA career?
Man, Chanel's a special fighter. She was one of the first people that I signed. I pushed hard to get her signed last year, ready for this year. She's, she's a sparring partner of my wife as well. She's calm, she's dangerous, she's calculated, but she's right at the beginning of her career, right? She's right at the very beginning. And I'm still struggling to find people that are willing to step in and fight her. Up weight classes, it doesn't matter. Like, people look at her and they go, she's going to be something quite special in the future. She's a vicious, vicious striker. She's at GB Top Team, working with Brad, working with all of those guys there, Ash Grimshaw. Her ground game's developing. I just feel like she's going to have, this is her year really to show that she's one of the best in Europe. Next year will be her opportunity to show she's one of the best in the world. And there are a lot of eyes on her, a lot of eyes. I think people are expecting big things. So my challenge is to find some good opposition.
Dan Hardy, thank you very much, man.
Appreciate it.